Welcome back to our channel, where we bring you the most thrilling and heartbreaking updates from the world of Genoa. The Y&R storyline heats up under the pressure Billy is facing. He might even erupt in a war against Jill, trying to extract every piece of information from her, leaving Jill confused and terrified. The power struggle within Chancellor Industries suddenly escalates from a boardroom power fight into a terrifying life-or-death crisis, threatening to tear the Abbott family apart forever. Billy Abbott, driven by an insatiable thirst for recognition and an obsessive need for control, has ignited a devastating fire that is burning everything in its path. At the heart of this corporate fire is his mother, Jill Abbott. The legendary power woman of the Chancellor Winter's empire is now facing a catastrophic health crisis caused by her own son's relentless investigation into her hidden past. As Jill's life becomes increasingly perilous, the entire city watches in utter horror, wondering if the corporate throne is truly worth the ultimate price. Will Billy realize the deadly consequences of his uncontrolled ambition before crossing the point of no return? The genesis of this tragic and explosive saga began with a single, fateful slip of the tongue that changed the course of their lives. For agonizing months, Billy has harbored a deep resentment toward Jill for unceremoniously ousting him from his leadership role at Chancellor Industries. He stubbornly refused to accept that his removal was simply a matter of pragmatic business strategy or a necessary reflection of his past impulsive failures. His dark paranoia was unexpectedly validated when Jill, in a rare moment of unguarded frustration, vaguely referenced the hidden, intricate complexities buried deep within the historical foundation of the company. That single, seemingly innocuous word became a dangerous obsession for Billy. He viewed it not as a maternal warning to back away, but as a direct challenge to his intellect and his birthright. He became absolutely convinced that Jill was hiding a monumental, earth-shattering secret, one that could explain his sudden exile and potentially hand him the keys to the corporate kingdom. What dark, historical truths was Jill desperately trying to keep buried in the dusty archives of Chancellor Industries? Driven by a manic, unyielding need to prove his worth to the world and to himself, Billy launched a clandestine, exhaustive investigation into the deepest, darkest corners of Chancellor's historical financial records. His relentless, obsessive digging finally struck gold, uncovering a volatile secret that had been intentionally buried for decades to protect the innocent. Billy discovered undeniable, legally binding documentation of a massive, unpaid historical loan made by his late father, the revered John Abbott, to Philip Chancellor II. The strict terms of this long-forgotten financial arrangement explicitly stipulated that if the massive debt remained unpaid, total ownership of the mighty Chancellor Industries would automatically default to the Abbott family. For Billy, this discovery was the ultimate intoxicating vindication he had been searching for his entire life. It was the absolute weapon he needed to reclaim his lost power, rewrite his narrative, and punish those who had ever dared to doubt his capabilities. But in his blinding, euphoric triumph, did Billy ever pause to consider why this explosive document had been kept hidden by his family for so many years? Armed with this newfound devastating leverage, Billy has unleashed a tidal wave of absolute chaos upon the unsuspecting citizens of Genoa City. He has boldly declared all-out, unforgiving war on Kane Ashby and Lily Winters, the current, dedicated stewards of the Chancellor Winter's legacy. Billy's aggressive, hostile takeover attempt has violently fractured long-standing alliances and turned former trusted friends into bitter, bloodthirsty enemies. He views Kane and Lily not as family or respected colleagues, but as illegitimate usurpers illegally occupying a throne that rightfully, legally belongs to the Abbott bloodline. The once civilized corporate battleground has rapidly devolved into a toxic, cutthroat arena of legal maneuvers, vicious personal attacks, and ruthless ultimatums. Kane and Lily are desperately fighting to protect the company they built, completely bewildered and horrified by Billy's ruthless, unrecognizable transformation into a corporate predator. How much collateral damage and human suffering is Billy willing to inflict on the very people who once supported him unconditionally? The catastrophic fallout from Billy's crusade extends far beyond the boardroom, threatening to obliterate the pristine legacies of Genoa City's most revered figures. If Billy successfully exposes the details of the unpaid loan to the unforgiving public, he risks permanently tarnishing the honorable, flawless reputation of his beloved father, John Abbott. Furthermore, the shocking revelation would cast a dark, inescapable shadow over the iconic Catherine Chancellor, suggesting to the world that her legendary empire was secretly built on a fragile foundation of unpaid debts and financial deceit. Most devastatingly of all, Billy's reckless actions are systematically and brutally destroying Jill's personal and professional reputation. He now openly views his own mother as a calculated, manipulative fraud, a woman who knowingly concealed the truth for her own selfish, financial gain and power retention. By painting Jill as a greedy villain, Billy is tearing apart the very fabric of their family history and destroying the legacy she fought to protect. Is Billy truly honoring his father's sacred memory, or is he merely using John's respected name to justify his own selfish, destructive vendetta? While Billy remains completely blinded by his insatiable thirst for revenge and absolute corporate dominance, he remains dangerously, tragically oblivious to the catastrophic toll this war is taking on Jill's physical well-being. During her recent visits to Genoa City, Jill masterfully presented a convincing facade of strength and full recovery, but the hidden reality is far more terrifying. Her health is incredibly fragile, and her weakened heart condition is a ticking time bomb waiting to detonate under pressure. The immense, suffocating, daily stress of Billy's relentless attacks, coupled with the imminent, terrifying exposure of her deepest, most guarded secrets, is pushing her cardiovascular system to the absolute breaking point. The sheer, unadulterated agony of watching her own flesh and blood dismantle her life's work and drag her respected name through the mud is proving to be a lethal, unbearable burden. Will the crushing, emotional weight of this maternal betrayal trigger a massive, fatal heart relapse that Jill cannot survive? The tragic, heartbreaking irony of this entire, destructive conflict is that Jill's initial, fateful decision to hide the truth was likely born out of a desperate, maternal desire to protect her family from ruin. Jill has spent her life carefully navigating the treacherous waters of Genoa City's elite society, making impossible choices to safeguard the Chancellor and Abbot legacies. She inherently knew that exposing the historical loan would instantly invite endless legal battles, vicious public scrutiny, and ruthless attacks from corporate predators like Victor Newman. By burying the secret deep in the archives, she absorbed the massive, psychological burden entirely on her own weary shoulders, shielding her children from the fallout. Now, her ultimate, silent sacrifice is being cruelly twisted into a false narrative of greed and betrayal by the very son she was desperately trying to protect. How long can Jill's failing heart endure the profound heartbreak of being villainized and hunted by the child she loves more than life itself? As the relentless pressure continues to mount with each passing day, the physical, undeniable manifestations of Jill's deteriorating health are becoming utterly impossible to ignore. Behind the heavy, closed doors of her private residence, she is violently struggling to breathe, desperately clutching her chest as the severe anxiety of the impending corporate scandal consumes her entirely. Every hostile confrontation with Billy, every harsh, venomous accusation he hurls at her, acts as a literal, physical blow to her severely weakened cardiovascular system. She is hopelessly trapped in a terrifying nightmare of her own making, physically unable to reveal the full, unvarnished truth without instantly destroying the fragile peace she fought so hard to build over the decades. The severe medical crisis looming over Jill is no longer just a distant possibility, it is an imminent, terrifying certainty if Billy's current trajectory continues unchecked. When her physical strength finally gives out, and she collapses under the weight of this war, who will be there to catch her? Billy's psychological state has rapidly deteriorated into a dangerous, manic obsession, completely blinding him to the stark reality of his mother's profound physical suffering. He is so utterly consumed by his twisted narrative of victimization and his desperate, clawing need to defeat Kane and Lily that he cannot see the devastating physical toll his actions are taking on the woman who gave him life. He cruelly interprets her physical evasiveness not as a sign of critical illness or maternal protection, but as absolute proof of her guilt and deceit. This profound, chilling lack of empathy is a terrifying psychological regression for Billy, closely echoing the darkest, most destructive periods of his past addictions and failures. He is actively, aggressively driving a massive wedge between himself and the only people who truly, unconditionally care about his well-being, isolating himself in a cold fortress of paranoia and ambition. When the corporate dust finally settles and the truth is revealed, will Billy find himself standing completely alone in a graveyard of his own making? The potential, explosive exposure of this massive historical secret also places Lily Winters in an agonizing, impossible position that threatens to destroy her career. As she desperately, tirelessly tries to hold the fractured company together amidst the chaos, she is violently caught in the crossfire between Billy's manic, unpredictable aggression and Kane's desperate, defensive maneuvers. Lily has always deeply respected Jill and highly valued the stability of the Chancellor Winter's empire. But Billy's shocking revelations threaten to pull the rug out from under her entire professional existence. If the Abbott family truly, legally owns Chancellor Industries, Lily's executive position, her hard-earned authority, and her entire future are entirely, irreversibly compromised. She is being brutally forced to navigate an absolute minefield of complex legal and ethical dilemmas, all while watching the man she once loved tear his own family apart for the sake of a title. Can Lily somehow find a brilliant, strategic way to neutralize Billy's existential threat before the entire company collapses under the crushing weight of this historical scandal? Meanwhile, the ruthless corporate sharks of Genoa City are eagerly circling the bloody waters, patiently waiting to capitalize on the Abbott family's spectacular internal destruction. Victor Newman, ever the brilliant, calculating opportunist, is undoubtedly monitoring the escalating chaos surrounding Chancellor Industries with intense, predatory interest. If Billy successfully manages to destabilize the massive company and destroy Jill's established leadership, Victor will absolutely not hesitate to launch his own ruthless, devastating offensive to claim the spoils. Billy's misguided, obsessive crusade is essentially doing Victor's dirty work for him, severely weakening both the Abbott and Chancellor empires from the inside out and leaving them vulnerable to a hostile takeover. By turning his destructive weapons on his own mother and his family's legacy, Billy is leaving the gates wide open for his family's greatest, most dangerous enemies to strike. Will Billy wake up and realize he is playing right into the manipulative hands of the Newman patriarch before his entire family is destroyed? The ultimate heartbreaking tragedy of this entire storyline lies in the terrifying potential permanence of Billy's reckless, impulsive actions. If his relentless, unforgiving pressure causes Jill to suffer a massive, fatal medical emergency, the resulting guilt will completely and permanently destroy his soul. Billy has spent his entire, chaotic adult life running from his past mistakes, desperately seeking redemption and validation for his numerous, painful sins. But directly causing the death of his own mother in the selfish, blind pursuit of corporate power is a horrific sin from which there is absolutely no return and no forgiveness. The coveted Chancellor throne, the prestigious executive title, the public vindication he so desperately craves, all of it, will instantly turn to bitter ashes in his mouth if it ultimately costs Jill her life. Is Billy truly prepared to live the rest of his miserable existence with the blood of his own mother permanently staining his hands? Time is rapidly running out for the fractured Abbott family as the clock ticks down toward an inevitable, catastrophic tragedy. The devastating collision course has been firmly set, and the impending impact threatens to violently shatter the landscape of Genoa City forever. Jill is bravely but silently fighting a losing, agonizing battle against her failing heart and the crushing, suffocating weight of a secret that has haunted her every waking moment for decades. Billy is blindly driving the narrative forward, with reckless, terrifying abandon, completely deaf to the desperate warnings of his siblings and utterly blind to the impending, irreversible tragedy staring him in the face. The only hope for their salvation lies in a desperate, miraculous moment of profound clarity and forgiveness before the final curtain falls. Billy must awaken from his toxic obsession, look past his blinding anger, and truly see the fragile, dying woman standing before him. Can Billy and Jill find a way to forgive each other and meticulously mend their fractured, bleeding bond, or is this the devastating, final end of the legendary Abbott matriarch?